Mike Keeler, coming from you from Channel 20, Central City, with my cameraman, Mr. Patrick Duffy, behind the camera, which one of these days I promise you'll see him. We'll bring him out from behind the camera. But today we are in the museum that was built back in 1870, and it used to be a schoolhouse. And we'll take you around and show you some of the buggies on top of these rooms here. I'm sitting in one of the display rooms right now. It's the bar, of course. Why would I pick that? Well, it's most comfortable right now, so I'm going to be sitting in the bar for a few minutes talking to you, and I'm going to have Mr. David Forsythe join me, who's the curator here, and he'll tell us a few stories and even show us a submarine. Yep, a submarine. We found that in Missouri Lakes and dug it out, and the museum has it now. We'll tell you how we got it in here and the whole thing. But for now, just kind of sit back and we'll give you a guide right through this place and show you everything we can, including a classroom upstairs that's still there. So we'll be right back. Here we are again with Mr. David Forsythe. David, thank you so much. I got to tell you, folks, he goes out of his way to meet us, and Patrick and I just enjoy having him over here to give us his history of Central City, and he's going to give you some of this museum today. And if you've never been up here to Central City to this museum, please make it a point to come up here and stop and look at all the displays that he's put together. It takes a lot of work to do this kind of stuff, and hopefully you'll come up here and support Central City, especially the museum. We've got 5 of them now. And what are the name of those, David?
We've got the Gilpin History Museum where we are now, the tour office at Washington Hall where our justice exhibit is, the Thomas House, the Coeur d'Alene Mine, and then the Straley House down in Blackhawk where we do our teas a few times a year.
And that's a fun show right there. If you can get a hold of Deb, who's the president of the Historical Society, and possibly get some tickets for that tea. They have about 3 shows while you sit there and have your tea and your crumpets and all that kind of stuff, and you get served. So it's in the old Straley House, so you would enjoy that very, very much. In a minute here, we're going to get up and start wandering around. Right now, we're sitting in the bar, and as you can see in this, hopefully Patrick can pick it up, but everything is of the era right now.
Yeah, and actually the bar behind us is from Crook's Palace.
Wow, I mean, when do you think that was?
Late 1800s would be my guess. It's not the original bar, but it's something they put in there during one of the remodels, and it was brought up here in the 1980s.
Wow, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's very carved, you can see on the top. And behind you, it's what is that game?
That is a slot machine. That is an old 1890s slot machine called the Judge. And you would turn the crank over here instead of pushing the button or pulling the lever.
Well, people like to pull the lever or turn the crank anyway, so they think that's good luck or something. I don't know. It's like touching the face of the machine.
Right.
Yeah. But, oh, it does. It says the Judge right on the front of that in the brass. It's got brass on the front. I love that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very rare. There aren't too many of these left.
What's the picture of the gentleman up there?
Just one of the social clubs from Central City.
Oh, okay. If Patrick can get a quick look above on the top of these little displays, you can see some of the old coaches in here. And who knows, maybe possibly one of them was written in by Grant when he came to visit. Who knows?
Anything's possible.
But anyway, we're going to leave this saloon in a few minutes, and we're going to take you around. I think we'll start at one of the rooms down here. Now we can just make our way around. Then we can go. You can show us that special submarine, which I enjoyed very, very much. So we'll be right back. Stay with us. Here we are, folks. We're standing in front of the medical room, basically, and if you look around here, you can see some of the stuff is steel here. I'll let David give you a little bit of background on it.
This is obviously our doctor's office display. Central City was actually very lucky that they had 4 or 5 doctors in practice up here. They did surgeries, cured illnesses. A lot of them served as county coroner for a number of years. But you just got the things they would use: an exam chair, different instruments in the cabinet, which I think are kind of gross to touch.
Yeah.
prescription books, medical books, and then the certificates and things that you see on the displays. Those are from Guy and Abraham Ashbaugh, who were brothers, who were two of the licensed doctors that were up here. They went to Rush Medical College.
Is that who that is right there?
That is Guy, and that is Abraham.
Oh, okay. Can you get that, Patrick, a bit?
Guy's real first name was Theophilus, but he went by Guy.
Theophilus. Wow. As you can see, the cabinet's got a lot of stuff in there. Who knows what that is, but I see one here, it's called Solo Cream in a box.
Yeah. I don't even know what all those things are for. They're all different cures. Some of them even are from the 1940s and 50s. The bottles on the bottom are actually from one of the pharmacies that was here in Central City. And it still has a lot of the drugs in the bottles that they would mix up.
I've got a question to ask. Is a lot of this stuff kind of like donated from people? I mean, because this is, this chair, I don't know if you can get a good picture of it, Patrick, but God, this chair, it looks so uncomfortable, number one. But number two, that's the kind of chair they use.
Yeah, pretty much everything that's in the museum has been donated.
Wow, wow. Okay, if you got to look at that, we're going to take you on to, what do we got next? The pharmacy. The pharmacy next, so we'll walk on over to the pharmacy. I think Patrick can show you the inside of the pharmacy there. Go ahead, Dave, tell us a bit about...
Again, in here, a lot of the bottles still with some of the different elements of drugs in them that they would mix up for you. Most of what's in this room came from Springer's Pharmacy, which was on Eureka Street in Central City. We even have the Coca-Cola ad that used to hang out in front of the building. Then in the case in the front here, just different compounds that you could buy to cure whatever ailed you. And the black piece with the holes in it on the case, a lot of people think it's a pencil holder. That's actually a low-tech hearing aid.
I was just going to ask what that was, yeah.
And stick that in your ear and the holes would amplify the sound. It actually works.
I love the scale over here, or whatever that is. Oh, that's the burner. Yeah.
We do have some scales. We've got one scale back on the cabinet in there, and then we've got a few that are in storage. But they did have a lot of scales with the pharmacy.
Wow, how old is that Coca-Cola sign?
From the 1930s or 40s. That's the oldest picture I've found with the sign in it.
Wow. This is quite interesting. And this is, this is as close to historical fact as you can get right here, that they've got it set up, everybody. And hopefully, again, you'll come up and visit us up here and take a look at the museum. I know if David's here, he'll take you through himself. So he doesn't have any problem just coming up and visit us. We're going to go on to the, what do we got here? The grocery store over here, so we can give you a look at that. That's awful small.
Yeah, the Quiller and DeBarty store was where Dostal Alley is now. And a lot of these are things that came out of the store. Again, a big scale in there that they would use to weigh different things, different reproduction labels on some of the cans. Some of the canned goods in there are original.
I see that.
We have buckets of paint from the hardware store in Blackhawk. We have crockery from the Quiller store here in Central City. Different ads and calendars that were hanging in the store. So just kind of a representation of what you would have found if you walked into Quiller and DeBarty in the late 1800s.
Very, very nice. I can see all that. Right here's a picture. If you know Dostal Alley, this is what it used to look like right here with the Quiller store. I don't know if you can get a clear picture of that, but that is very, very interesting. Okay, we're going to go on to our next stop. Well, of course, with every town, you got to have a lawyer, correct? And so our next one will be the law office here. And why is it called the Teller Law Office?
Because Henry Teller obviously was the pioneer lawyer in Central City. His law office was across the street from the Teller House. And when we did the sign for this, I thought it made more more sense for it to say Teller Law Office than what it said before that.
That used to be an old ticket office at one time.
Yeah, well, at one point the operative used that as their ticket office. The desk in here actually belonged to John Evans, who was the second territorial governor of Colorado, and it was his daughter Anne who was really instrumental in getting the Opera Association started in 1932. A lot of legal papers and things in the desk that we've had donated over the years and put them in there. A few certificates, an Oddfellows membership certificate, and we also have a certificate on this side appointing someone as postmaster. It's actually signed by Chester A. Arthur, who was president at the time. The taxidermy birds on the desk were actually owned by Henry Teller. That was his private collection. And we had those upstairs and moved them down here into the law office. And then behind Mike there is a picture of the law office. Henry Teller is standing on the left side, and then the guy standing at the door is Chase Withrow, who was another lawyer up here, shared office space with.
I see. Is that a printing, like a press for printing? What is that?
It's actually a letterpress. When they would type letters, they always made carbon copies of them. And then when they got enough, they would bind them into a book. And so that letterpress, you crank it down, smash the letters so they were nice and flat, and then you bind them into a book. That is Garfield.
Garfield. Picture of Garfield. I kind of look like Grant there.
Yeah, all the bearded presidents.
Yeah, yeah, the same.
But that's James Garfield.
And did you get that safe in the back? That's quite the safe.
Unfortunately, the safe is locked, so we don't know if there's any gold in it or not.
Wow. Very interesting. We're going to move on down to the Rocky Mountain National Bank display.
Rocky Mountain National Bank was in the Teller House. The vault of it is still there. You saw that in one of the earlier episodes. But we have one of the ledger books from the vault, some checks. This is one of the teller windows from that bank. This is the pay gold teller window. They also had a receive gold teller window and then a pay and receive silver teller windows. Another one of the cash books. The scale over there is the gold scale from the First National Bank of Central City. So that's what they would weigh gold dust when people would come in.
Yeah, didn't they, a lot of times cash never exchanged hands. It was always gold dust or something
Yeah.
like that around.
If that's what they had, that's what they used.
There's the bank for you. Now we're going to move on to another display. And actually this one kind of creeps me out a little bit. What about you, Patrick?
It does a little bit.
Anyway, this gentleman's getting his hair cut from the barber, so.
Barbers were important in the early days. A lot of times they also served as dentists and surgeons. Even into the 1920s and 30s, I had a great uncle who would go to the barber to get moles cut off of his neck. So barbers did a lot. A lot of times people would have their own shaving mugs when they would go to the barber. You can see some of them back there. They would also have their own hair tonics that they would mix up, and they would keep them around. So the colored bottles are to represent hair tonics. A lot of different razors and things in here. The guy's name is Hubert. He looks a little rough, but that's why he's in the barber shop getting cleaned up.
That's nice of you, a little rough. I'm looking at that calendar in the back too. That's a 1900 Winchester Arms calendar.
One of many old calendars that we have in the collection here.
You can see the straight razors in the back. Wow. Well, you know, back then I'd hate to have given a bad haircut, right? You could die on the spot.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dave and I are gonna be back in a few minutes. We're gonna take you over and show you something very special to the museum. It's been here for a couple of years now, but there's all kinds of stories on it, but we're gonna show you it firsthand. So we'll be right back. Well, welcome back, and believe it or not, right behind me here is this first submarine found up here in Missouri Lakes, right off of 119. And when they drug that thing out of there in 1944, it was in a warehouse for quite a few years, right? Mr. Bill Russell had it, and I think he ended up donating it to the museum. But I don't know if I'd want to go for a ride in that thing or not, but
His design actually wasn't bad. It was built by a man named Rufus Owen over a period of 2 years from 1896 to 1898. And he really wasn't that bad in this. He was an engineer. He designed a lot of mine buildings. He designed Central City Blackhawk's water system. And he just kind of wanted to see if he could do this. The biggest issue with this was that when they were loading the ballast into it, the rocks that are around it are rocks that they use for ballast. It's about 3 tons of rock, and the sub could hold 3.5 tons, but they weren't careful putting it in. And we had actually an engineer from the School of Mines come up and look at this thing, and he said if even one of these rocks was in the wrong spot, it would have thrown off the balance and sent it to the bottom, and that's what ended up happening.
that's exactly what happened. Put it in the water, gone.
Yep. And with the technology of 1898, there was no way they could pull a sub loaded with 3 tons of rocks up out of the bottom of the lake. And so I'm sure it killed Owen to leave it there, but he had no other choice.
And they came along in 1944, decided they were going to pull that thing out, and we actually had the truck up here that was giving people rides.
Yeah, it was a 1929 Coleman. It's named Charlie, and it has been fully restored. The guy who owns it brought it up here when we opened this exhibit and gave people rides on it.
That was an interesting day.
Yeah.
If you come up here for anything, you've got to see this submarine. It's unbelievable. I mean, when we first got it, I was looking inside there and I'm thinking, where would you sit? Number one in there, and I mean, that thing had the leak.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, there are a lot of questions we'll never know the answer to. At most, it probably held 2 people. It was probably hand cranked, but Owen didn't leave any clues about it. One very cool thing is that we now have video footage of this thing being pulled out of the water in 1944. Someone informed me about it, and I was able to secure the rights to it to use it in our exhibit. So beginning in the summer, we will actually have footage from 1944 of them recovering this thing.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'd like to see that. On the top, you can see where the hatch was. Not much there.
Yeah, it was probably a conning tower, which was a tower with windows on all 4 sides, so Owen could have seen where it was going. Unfortunately, Missouri Lake was partially drained in 1932, and somebody ran out and stole it as a souvenir. So I keep hoping somebody will find it in their attic and bring it back to us, but so far it hasn't happened.
There you have it. The submarine that really didn't make it. I'm sorry, but there was a lot of talk about it, a lot of excitement, and once they got it to the water, it just sunk. Missouri Lakes is right out there off of 119 across from the school. And if you're ever driving down 119, you can take a look at it. It's a private little lake now, but that's where this thing sat for many, many years. It was out there in the bottom of that thing. And we're very glad to have it here at the Historical Society and Museum now. Anyway, we're going to go on upstairs and show you a few more rooms that Dave has put together. And Patrick, I don't know if you can see that picture behind you there of them taking that out of the lake. Hopefully there's no reflection or anything on there that'll bother it. But that's what it looked like when they pulled it out of the Missouri Lake.
And the window that picture's hanging in front of us, the window we had to take out to get this thing in the building.
Yeah, they actually pulled this window out to get the sub in here. And you're gonna say, well, how did you get it through that window? It still looks smaller.
The window's 4 feet wide and the sub is 38 inches wide, so we just made it.
So guys work hard to get stuff in here like that, and we really appreciate it because we get to sit back and look at it and enjoy it with with everything. I know Dave got these rocks, like he said, these are some of the original rocks, right? From the bottom up.
Yeah, those are the original rocks, and Alan Demers, one of my docents, and I, we moved those things up here in 5-gallon buckets. That was a very long day.
I can imagine. Okay, we're gonna go on upstairs and show you a couple more rooms. So stay with us, and we'll be back in a few minutes. On our way up to the classroom, we wanted to show you. I wanted you to see these autographed pieces from the Opera House and Glory Hole.
Yeah, these were actually in the Glory Hole.
Okay.
In the back room, it was chalk paint that they'd painted on the wall, and they would have all the stars from the Opera House come and sign the wall after the performances. And these are all that's left.
As you can see, the one on the top here is got Myrna Loy's name on it and the cast members in there, and it's from Barefoot in the Park, so that's why you got the outline of the barefoot there. And then on my right here, here's a signature from Mae West, and that's 1949.
Yep, when she was here in Diamond Lil.
Yeah, she played Diamond Lil up here, so that's what that is. And then just above that, there's a signature by Judy Collins. That one looks like, I can't see a year, I think like 65 or something.
It was either 64 or 65. The guy who owned the Glory Hole at that point, his name was Bill Axton, and he always claimed that he gave Judy Collins her start.
Probably did. Above that is Shirley Booth. Conrad Hilton's up there too.
Yeah.
And then right behind David, there's Miss Saigon show with all the people that signed that. And what is the one down here below, David?
Gypsy Rose Lee.
Ah, Gypsy Rose Lee. Awesome. Right here.
And then Vance Kirkland, who was a well-known artist at the Kirkland Museum in Denver.
Also, I'm looking up on the top again, and Christopher Reeves has signed that one up there back in '73. So we've got some very special signatures here from a lot of famous actors and actresses. And I wanted you to take a peek at that and enjoy it as much as we do. That picture back there, is that at the Old Hostel? Is that the Keller?
It's actually the Glory Hole.
The Glory Hole, okay.
In the 90s, they had a woman do a painting of what the Glory Hole would have looked like in 1974. And so that's it. We have all of the people identified in the picture, but on the right there, the guy in the green shirt is Chocolate Dan Monroe, who some of the old timers might remember from up here, and then to his right is Sandy Hoffman.
For me, or both of those guys. Chocolate Dan is no longer with us, but Sandy's still with us. I'm looking over here on my left too, I see a Buck Rogers sign.
Yeah, haven't been able to figure that one out yet. I think Buck Rogers was a play. But we haven't figured that one out.
This is very, very interesting. Okay, we're going to move on into the classroom now and kind of give you a peek at what one of those looked like in this building when they first opened it. Because like I said at the beginning, this was the schoolhouse that everybody came to in town. So we're going to walk on in here and show you what it looks like. Well, here we are. Like I said, we're in the old schoolroom, and it's got one of the original desks for the kids and the teacher's desk, and you can see her bell, and yes, that stick right there on that desk was a paddle stick. That would keep people in line quite a bit, I would imagine. But anyway, I'll let Dave tell you a little bit more about this room.
It's set up just to kind of honor the history of the building as a school. It did open in 1870, and it was in operation as a school until 1968. It was all grades until 1900, and then after that it became the high school. So we have a lot of different things from a lot of different periods in here. We have a cheerleader's uniform from the late 1960s. We have a pennant here from the early 1900s, a letter from a letter jacket. probably about 1950s, 1960s. The picture up top there was a gift from the graduating class of 1904. And then we've got different pictures of the different schools around the county, because most cities did have at least an elementary school. And so we've got that, plus we've got some pictures from the Clark School, which is down in front where the gaming building is now, which they built in 1900 as Central City's new elementary school. The most famous principal here was Horace Hale, who went on to become president of the University of Colorado, and also has a building named after him up there on campus. And this was also one of the first integrated schools in the state. They had a separate school for black children that was over by the Teller House. They had 4 students, and they decided to close the school. And Henry Teller actually had to threaten to file a lawsuit to let the black students come and attend this school. And so when he threatened that, they said, okay, they can come. And in that one picture over there, you can actually see a couple of the black students out in front with Horace Hale.
Which is, which one of these?
Yeah.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Well, this is the classroom. We've got a couple more rooms we want to show you. And again, if you have any questions, at the bottom of our picture, you can get a ticker tape and tell you where to email, and go ahead and send your emails to us. Let us know what you guys want to do, okay? Because we do this for you through the City of Central, which is great to be able to do that. So any questions you might have, go ahead and email Patrick, and we can either get into a building or something like that. But we'll talk about that later. We'll go on to the next spot for you and talk about that a little bit. We're back again, and here we are in front of this camping tent exhibit. I believe these were minor tents back then, right?
They were called range tents or pyramid tents, and this is what most of the miners used when they came out here in 1859.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of room in there, is there?
No, and they weren't meant to last very long. The guys that were coming out here to make their fortune and get out, so they didn't need a lot.
Well, I've noticed in a lot of the old hotels and things like that, the beds seem to be about 5 foot long anyway. They're not much.
Yeah, they were a lot shorter back in the 1800s.
If you can, Patrick, if you can get a peek on the inside, what he's done in this, that would be kind of cool. I don't know if you can or not. I see every tent's got to have their whiskey, right?
Right. That's important.
But that's got an old cot that it's sitting on, and actually that looks kind of comfortable back there.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to try it.
But this is the kind of tents that they used to use, and of course this is a newer tent, but you can imagine with the wind chill factor like 20 below, sleeping in one of these tents out there, and trying to have a little campfire on the side, which, by the time you went to bed, it was unbelievably cold. So, and then there's this gold pan there on the side too. So.
And then behind him is a cabin, or at least a representation of the cabin. I moved from the tents to building the cabins when it became a little bit more of a permanent mining camp. Again, they weren't fancy, but it was what they needed to survive out here. And this exhibit is actually the first part of an exhibit called Gilpin County Mining Camp to Home, which I installed a couple of years ago, just to show the progression from living in these tents and cabins to the Victorian houses that are so common up here today.
I mean, you gotta remember, when these guys were mining, sometimes they were just feet away from you, a few feet. I mean, these guys would claim that spot of land, and that was it. That's why you had so many fights and killings, is because within a foot or 2 foot, somebody crossed that line, they were dead. I mean, this was some serious stuff back then. So, these guys that you see cabins and things like that, they must have hit something or got some gold to be able to afford to build this kind of stuff. So this is kind of where the more rich would actually build and live at. It doesn't look like much on the inside, but that was a cabin. I mean, that's for sleeping and keeping warm. That was about it. So this room remember, you know, when like you take a place like Russell Gulch. I mean, one time you had a couple thousand people sitting up there in that little gulch, side by side, mining gold. So, if you ever seen any of the old shows or anything on TV, that's how they staked those few feet of mining was like that. So, anyway, this was in the corner over there. You can see the cabin that Dave was emulating out there, and you can see how it's kind of set up. So it's not a huge family home by any means. So I can see the guy's eating his eggs and sausage back there. And it looks like a pretty dried up biscuit too.
Yeah. It's actually a lot more rubbery than it looks.
But anyway, there's an old wood stove in there. But this is a great display. It tells you exactly what's going on. I see a registered call paper there. Gosh, what year is that?
That is
1900s. This place is great. You want to come by here and just look at the calendars and stuff. And I think we talked about that when we were in the Thomas house when we did our show. These calendars go back to early 1900s, even later, right? And 1898, stuff like that. So if you like that, that's awesome. As I'm sitting here talking, I'm looking at one of my favorite people that we celebrate every year up here in Central City, and it is true. You know, some people celebrate different days, and they have celebrations for us, but we have Lou Bunch days up here, and Lou Bunch was one of the last brothel owners up in Central City, so we celebrate that day every year. And I'm looking at her behind Patrick. Patrick, she's back in that corner. Maybe you can show everybody what she looks like. So that's Lou Bunch. Lou Bunch died in 1935. Dave, was you with us that day we put the headstone on? David, me, a guy named Chuck Roberts, we met some of the sporting house girls at the Fairmont Cemetery in Denver, because when Lou died, she never had a headstone, and we solicited, or the Historical Society did. And at that time, it was the Fortune Valley Casino that had put the money out to buy this headstone for Lou Bunch. And we went there and dedicated it. It's just us. And on her headstone, it says, Madam Lou Bunch, loved by many. She was some kind of woman, that's for sure. But anyway, I wanted you to take a peek at that, because a lot of people don't know who that is. But she was quite special. But every year in August, June, we have Lou Bunch Days, and it's a great time up here. So come up here and join us for just a great time in the street. So we're going to go on to the next room for you and show you a little bit more. So come right back. And we're back. We're going to show you what a typical Victorian home looked like on the inside. On Patrick's right, we have the sitting room area over there, and as you can see, there's all kinds of stuff we can talk about. The box that's sitting by the chair on Patrick's right is probably where he kept his cigars and sat and had his drink and his smoke at night. Then, of course, the fireplace behind him. We've got the old piano in the corner. And then next to that, we have the dining room area with a lot of the old antique things there. A typical setup for a home. And then in here is the kitchen area. And this is kind of like the Thomas house. This is an old washer. What is
It's
that?
actually a dishwasher.
That is a dishwasher. Let me get a good picture of it. But this is a dishwasher. It's amazing. It's got a crank on the side and all that. Now this is kind of a more of a rich person type. What would you think?
This is probably kind of middle class.
Yeah.
Obviously nicer than living in cabins.
Yes.
Compared to what was in the next room. But not necessarily ultra wealthy by any means.
I mean, they have some of the nicest things that you can have. Down on the floor is a butter churner down there. And then next to that is the old wood stove that they used to cook on in the kitchen. And then on my left right here, this is all brass. This is the old wash machine. And you can see there's a generator on this one that ran it, so it's a little bit newer.
Yeah.
But they would wash your clothes and then wring them out in here. And as you can see, this has got 1900 on it. I don't know if this was built in 1900 or the whole thing, but
Probably the whole thing.
is there some way? You know what? Did they rock it back and forth? Oh, I see there's a handle there on the side. So
Yeah, and the springs, it would just sit there and lock itself back and forth. Save you from beating your clothes with a rock in there.
yeah, that's for sure. It's amazing some of this stuff that they have here. The old ironing board there, for example. But you did a great job in setting this up. I mean, it's almost like walking into someone's home.
That was the goal, so I'm glad it worked.
It did. It worked very well. And then on Patrick's left, my right, there's a few things that that they would have in their home. Maybe jewelry, some hat pins, a pair of shoes in the back there. There's some real nice pins that are back in the very back. A little purse, if you can see it. It's right there. This little purse here. And then some of the, it looks like perfume containers back here.
Bottles, powders.
This is interesting right there. That one.
Yeah, that's a perfume atomizer, but it's missing the rubber squeeze
Yeah.
part that would go on.
And then over here towards the center, we've got a hat. And we've got it looks like things that they would use on their hair with some wigs.
Right.
I couldn't even begin to tell you what some of these things. Some of them are curling
Yeah,
irons,
a lot of those are old curling irons.
and they look like scissors if you take a real good look at it. Now the comb there, that's basically what it is. It's a comb, right? Or was that used for something else?
Yeah, just a comb.
But you look at these things, and I mean, just it's like holding a pair of pliers in your hand. That's what it looks like.
And they would heat them up on the stove. So.
Can you imagine heating those up on a stove and then burning your hair like that? Oh my gosh! And then over here's another display of more purses and stuff like that, which you still see a lot of this kind of stuff around Central City. There's a lot of people that have these and sell them. So these are really, really nice. Here's a makeup, like a makeup tin down here with a little mirror in it.
We have another one of those that belonged to Henry Keller's daughter Emma.
And these are one of my favorites right here. These are the old hair combs. And I think they could use those as pins too for their hats or their hair anyway. But there's several of those in here. I hope that that you can see all the stuff in here. I know there's a little bit of light coming through, so the reflection might mess things up. But again, we apologize if you can't get it, but we try to show you as much as we can and as soon as we can at time. But behind David, there's another display. It looks like their child's toys and their shirts. And if you can get a look at that, that's unbelievable. But little toy ironing boards, dolls, pool toys that are sitting down there. The old ice skates in the bottom down there. And then also there's a pair of winter gloves, it looks like, down there. It's pretty amazing. And then above that cabinet we have the old irons. That is a steam iron, I can tell by the back of it right there. But this is just a regular heat iron. But you can go along and look at some of the things they have there. One quick question, what is that right there?
Which one?
That
26?
Yeah.
That is a auger used to drill a hole in a wooden cask for inserting a tap.
Oh, wow. I can see it spreading on the end, yeah.
And this is our What the Heck Is It exhibit. And
Yes.
so this is kind of for people to come in and try to guess what some of these things are.
What is number 18 there?
18 is a carpet, no, that's an ice chipper. And then next to it is a carpet stretcher.
An ice chipper. Wow.
The favorite of some of my docents is number 2, which is an electroshock therapy device.
is that literally a string spooler
Yes.
there?
With a cutter.
Wow. And number 8, what are those?
Number 8, I think, it's a part of a spinning wheel.
Oh, wow. And it does say, it says, what the heck is it? And they've figured out a lot of this stuff. That looks like a saddle.
That is a plate for a horse that it would wear on its throat.
So I hope that gives you a good idea of some of the stuff that we have in here. We're going to take you on into the next room and show you some more buggies and stuff. Are those still up in here? Show you some more of the carriages and things. So stay with us and we'll be right back again for you. Here we are again. We're looking at some of the displays from the movies that were filmed here in Central City. And Dave's going to tell you a little bit more about who's in them and all that kind of stuff. I can see some of the people that I know, but who's this right here, Dave?
The big picture in the middle is Tom Mix and his horse Tony. He filmed 3 movies in Central City and Gilpin County in 1910 and 1911. And that kind of started the movie boom up here. One of the biggest movies filmed up here was The Duchess and the Dirtwater Fox in 1976 with Goldie Hawn and George Segal. We've got a lot of pictures of them around town. They filmed several episodes of Perry Mason up here when they started making the TV movies in the late 1980s, early 1990s. They filmed an episode of Route 66 up here. Part of the miniseries Centennial was filmed here, and a lot of locals starred in that.
That's when they actually took the streets and just brought all the sand in and put wood planks down on the walkways. I mean, that looked original. I mean, I wish they would have left it that way, to be honest with you. But go ahead, I'm sorry, finish up.
And then the most recent up here was the Overbrook Brothers, which they filmed part of it here in 2009. So Central City and Gilpin County have starred in quite a few movies and TV shows over the years.
I wish we still had a lot more of that up here. I'm looking forward to seeing some more of that up here.
They've got us.
Yeah, that's right. We do a lot of shows up here. We'll talk about that later on too, so we can get you through this. But just a quick glance of some of the stars that have been up here. The picture down here of George Segal, he's sitting on Main Street down there on his horse, and a lot of that was filmed in the old Belvedere Theater down there, which I hope one of these days will be reopened for us to look at, and maybe Patrick and I can get in there and show you. But it's kind of roughed up right now, so but maybe one of these days we'll get in. Again, behind us is it looks like one of the old organs.
Yeah, this is the organ from the Russell Goltz Church.
Yep.
Then we have a sign from the old Black Hawk Community Church. We have the lectern from St. James when Clara Brown attended church there. We have one of the old kneelers from St. Paul's, which is right next door to the museum here. And then I've tried to put pictures of all of the churches that were in Gilpin County over the years. A lot of them are not here anymore. For example, the Presbyterian Church that used to be next door to the Teller House, it was torn down in 1922. The Congregational Church, which used to be kind of down in front of the museum, it's long gone. But a lot of the churches that are in these pictures are still here. They're not in the greatest of shape anymore in some cases, but they are still standing.
If you've been following us a little bit on YouTube or what have you, you'll see one of our shows is from the St. James that we did a few weeks back, and it gives you an idea of what the inside of St. James looks like and stuff like that. So take a peek at that on YouTube and you'll get a great idea. As we walk on Patrick's left and my right is a little display cabinet of some of the high school stuff, like the football. What year was that from, Dave, you know?
I believe that was about 1900.
And next to that is a real football helmet, by the way. They didn't think about concussions or anything like that then.
No.
So it looks like stuff from my golf course.
Yeah, this is when they used to have a putt-putt course that ran through all the casinos on Main Street. We got all the clubs and balls donated a couple of years ago.
You know, that would be fun. Maybe we can put something together here in Central City to have a golf tournament and you play through. They do that in Durango too also.
Yeah.
They have one of those every year. So maybe we could come up with that again and it gives you a chance to go into all the buildings in Central City and play around the golf at the same time if you enjoy it. So anyway, next we have, looks like the Blackhawk Fire Department display.
Yeah, this exhibit was created about 20 years ago with assistance from Blackhawk. We have the hose cart from the fire company, one of the old uniforms, some different documents related to it, fire buckets, fire extinguishers, fire hats, all the different things that they used to use to fight fires up here.
Yeah, you'd think they would put horses on it, but I see they have firefighters with them strapped around their shoulders hauling this thing.
Firefighters would actually pull these things, and they would have contests every year to see which hose team was the fastest. They would pull the carts down Main Street and have prizes for whoever won.
And these are just looks like some articles or.
Yeah, we've got letters, receipts for when they bought equipment, pictures of some of the buildings, ribbons from some of those hose cart competitions, address books essentially of the fire department members.
So I hope you get a good shot of this, Patrick. So comes out good on the show, so you can really see what this stuff is all about. But anyway, again, please come up here and visit. Here's one of the old bells right here on the floor. It's pretty cold in here, Dave. How cold is it in this place?
It's kept at about 55 just so the pipes don't freeze.
Wow. Feels a lot colder than that, that's for
In
sure.
the summer it's really nice. In the winter it's a little chilly.
Here's the old post office right here. This is how they're kind of set, kind of like our library at our church is kind of set up. But you see the old ledger in there and some ledgers they have in there and stuff still.
Yeah, these are actually the records that started the Historical Society. The post office was going to get rid of these in 1968, and some concerned citizens went to them and said, "Can we have them?" And the post office said that the rules said they could only donate them to a nonprofit. So Sid Squibb went down to Denver, filed the paperwork, created the society, and the records in this display are what we started with.
Wow. Is this original here?
Yeah, that is from, I believe, the old Central City post office. These were the boxes where people would pick up their mail.
Wow. And Central City new post office is right over here now. So I think we're going to go on to show you a couple more little things that we have hanging on the walls, like a set of keys, for example, that looked like they were 1900.
Yeah, part of our ice display. This is the different ways they used to collect ice so people could keep their food cold.
Yeah, you see these are big ice picks right here. To be honest with you, I don't know what this
That's
is.
an ice saw. We've got a lot of different versions of ice saws. We've got this one, which would be horse-drawn, that one, which you'd push, and then we've got the gas-powered one out in front of the museum, which you can actually see in operation in that picture.
Like in this one, they sit there and do this. No, wow. I know these pick them up.
And they used to do the ice harvest out by Rollinsville.
Well, there's another saw up there. And these are ice shoes.
Yeah. Strap those on your shoes so you can walk on the ice.
Now that's the kind of shovel you need to shovel snow right there. I don't know if you can get a good shot of this, Patrick, but this is unbelievable. There's a little piece of metal on the bottom of this. And you can imagine shoveling snow. Right now, just shoveling snow is kind of a nightmare, but this would be unbelievable. And there's an old sled. I'll bet you that thing got a lot of work back then too.
Yeah, that's what they throw the blocks of ice on and haul them out.
That's interesting. Okay, we're going to go on down to the mining room, correct? We're going to take a look at the mining room here and give you an idea of what some of the miners had or what they worked with and things like that. So come on down with us. back down in front of the mining exhibit, and I'm going to have Dave kind of walk you through this as we go by, and we're going to start right here. This is the sluice box.
Yeah, that's an old portable sluice box, which is kind of early technology. The mining exhibit does sort of go in order, and it starts out with the placer mining, and they come up in pan, and they have the sluice boxes to help run the ore over. Picks and shovels and pans, and then we kind of moved into the hard rock mining, where you feed down underground and using drill steels. We have a forge that they actually use to sharpen the drill bits in.
This is pretty interesting right here. Yeah, they would heat them up so they could do that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Heat them up and reshape them and kind of start over with them.
Now, did they run this by hand, or was it a pedal to it at one time?
There was probably a pedal to it that we don't have anymore. And then we've got actually a model of the mine that is at one of the world fairs that Gilpin County created. And so you can kind of see what would happen when they would go underground. When they started going underground, that was when you started getting miner's lung and all those awful things that would kill you. And so we actually have a copy of an ad from the Register Call for a new drink that was supposed to cure miner's lung. I kind of have my doubts that it worked.
I think that was more whiskey than anything else.
Probably. In the cases, we've got different things. We've got different hammers that they would use, different sizes of the drill steels. They actually had some drills that had detachable tips, so that when something was worn out, you wouldn't have to throw the whole thing away. You could just screw a new tip on. We have a spoon here, which is this long thing. When they would be drilling in a hole, they would use the spoon to clear the dirt out, so that they could go in and put the dynamite in.
I love these hand steels right here. Those are what they literally would hold. Somebody would hold, and the other guy would take one of those sledges and pound it. So you had to have a lot of trust in that guy swinging that sledge, for number one. But number two, they'd make the holes deep enough to slide their dynamite into. I'm sorry, Dave. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. But the guy, every time he would hit that with the sledge, he would twist, and you could see the ends of these have a little blade on the end of them. And say they would sit there all day long, and he would just twist that and trust the guy swinging that sledge that he's going to hit the end of that thing. But go ahead on.
And when you wanted the guy to stop hitting it, you put your hand over the end of it.
Yeah, so you total trust.
Yeah, and by candlelight, you were hoping that the guy didn't see the shiny end of the drill anymore. Dynamite, we have a replica of a dynamite plunger. We have a dynamite warmer because you had to keep the dynamite warm.
I was going to say, the dynamite had to stay warm because it would freeze. And you're thinking, wow, don't you risk the chance of it blowing up? Well, just like anything else, I suppose. But it was a lot safer than holding it over a candle in the mine and trying to thaw it out, that's for sure.
Right.
So.
We have old dynamite boxes, so obviously they went through a lot of dynamite. Over here we've got an ore bucket from the mid-1880s. This bucket is actually from Arizona, but we have a picture of a Gilpin County mine downstairs with almost an identical bucket in it. So I was very thrilled when we found that. The bailing bucket behind it, that was what they would use to empty the water out of the mines. There's a plunger on the bottom of it, so they would send that down, it would fill with water, they'd bring it up and release the plunger.
And we've got up at the Cordele, they've got one like that they actually would drop them down inside the mine with.
Yeah, and we actually
bring them back up several hundred feet. Could you imagine that?
And we did actually get that one hanging over the shaft. The shiv wheel back in the corner there, that's what they would use to raise and lower the buckets in the mines. And in this display case, these are all the different ways people would crush ore. The more you could crush the ore, the more gold you'd get out of it. So you had hand crushers, we've got balls that would roll around in mills. We have a retort where they would cook it. We have a little kind of personal ore separator right there. Mercury containers because they would use mercury to try to separate the ore out. We have the log book from the Rocky Mountain concentrator, which was actually down in Blackhawk. We have a model of the Iron City Mill, and you can kind of see. The train cars, they'd come in at the top, dump the ore, and then it would go down through a whole different series of elevators and different processes for crushing it before it would come out at the bottom.
Yeah, one of the things that they would do, I'll explain a little bit, the mills were huge. They had one in Blackhawk too at the time, but these guys would buy these rocks, okay, from the miners and stuff, and that went outside. They would take all of this ore back into this mill and crush it up with a giant machine, and that's how these guys got paid, was whatever they had in those rocks, and so they depended on gold in these rocks. And the miners, I guess they just didn't have time to sit there and crush every rock, so they would just sell them by the piles, right?
It kind of depended, you know, if they were just an employee of the mine, then they, you know, the more rock they produced, the more they got paid. And it was up to the mill owners to actually put the gold out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, like they see on TV, oh, there's gold right here. It's already, you know, it's just right in the bottom of this pan. That's not how it works all the time. This is how it works right here. You've got to go out and get it out of these rocks. Like, so you can understand what these guys went through back in the early 1800s when they were mining this stuff. But anyway, we'll go on, Dave. I'm sorry.
In this case here, we've got some steam whistles that they would use in the mines. They stopped using bells, they would go to steam whistles. And then the big piece down here is a hydraulic drill, which was also known as the Widowmaker. Because that thing would kick up so much dust, and that was really worse for the miners' lungs than doing the old hand drills. Eventually they did start shooting water through some of these, and that kind of cut down on the dust, but those were pretty terrible when they first started using them.
Didn't they carry around a mercury flask? Is that what that is down there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they did a lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't get away with.
Well, that's probably why they didn't live past 30 years old.
Yeah.
I got a really weird question. You've got 4 different sizes of whistles on that thing. Do they all mean something else, you think?
No, it just kind of depended on the mine and what size they could afford or what size they wanted to use. Obviously, a small one would have much use for them. It was a good way to kind of test ore and separate ore and see if we could get anything.
Wow. Okay. We'll move on.
We actually have a sewing machine over here that a woman used to make clothing for miners until 1950. Some of her friends came and donated that to us a couple of years ago. And I thought that was pretty cool to get a sewing machine that actually was used to make clothing for the miners up here. This is our concentrating wheel, which was just another way of separating ore. You put it in here and start spinning this thing around and sit on a table and spin. There are huge gears on the back of it. And there's little ridges in that cloth that the ore would get caught on, or the gold would get caught on. And as it spun, the gold would spin out to the outside of the base rock and stay down in the center.
Above that, I see the Sarno Sleepy Hollow. Is that the mine disaster that we had up there?
Yeah, that was the worst mining disaster in Gilpin County history. It happened in 1895. The wall between Sleepy Hollow and the Americas mine collapsed, and the Americas, the lower levels had flooded because they weren't working in, so the water rushed through the Sleepy Hollow and the Fisk and ended up killing 14 miners.
14, okay.
And so we've got pictures of the mine, some articles from it. We actually have a tombstone evidence from a couple of people who were killed in it.
It says he is one of the 12 miners who died in the Sleepy Hollow mine. That's what it says on these.
Yeah, there were 12 in the Sleepy Hollow and 2 in the Fisk. And all these mineral samples in the cases here, this is one of the coolest things I think we've got. These were actually sent to Paris in 1867 as part of an exhibition. And here they are on display in Paris. And then they came back here, went to a bunch of different places. They wound up in the Teller House for a long time, and then we got them in the 1990s. But the coolest thing about these is that so many of them are actually labeled with the mines they came from.
Yeah, they got, was that the Vancouver
That's
mine?
the Vancouver mine. We've got a few that we can't read just because of the writing or because the labels deteriorated. But we've got them from the Gunnell, we've got them from the Egyptian.
Is that what you say, the Lil Load? Is that what that says or something? Looks like it. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
I think
pretty
that
hard to
says
read.
the Lil Load. Obviously, a lot of the labels have deteriorated over the years. But we've got the Clinton Tunnel. Here's the big piece from the Egyptian. The Gunnell stuff is over here. So I think it's very cool that we have these and that so many of them still have the labels on them from where they came from.
Very interesting. Well, I believe that just about does it for the day. I want to thank Mr. David Forsythe again. It's always great to have David. I mean, he's been here now for quite a few years.
10.
And we're both on the board of directors here for the Historical Society, and that's another thing. We're always looking for new members here. We have 9 on our board now.
I think we're up to 11 now.
9 and 2 alternates, right?
Right.
We have 9 members and 9 voting members and 2 alternates, but we're always looking for members. And you people out there that are, that love history, this is the place you want to be, because we do a lot of different things. It all starts right here. We decide what shows we're going to do every year, and they get put together either by David or Deb Ray, who's the president of the Historical Society, and she does a great job, by the way. And we're going to be starting to put together our new shows for this year. When Linda Jones was doing some of the shows, she had some theater shows. Maybe we can bring some of those back to you, because we have some good actors here that do a lot of neat stuff. We just finished the Creepy Crawls, by the way, and that went pretty well, I would think. But we always do a different show every year in the Creepy Crawl, so you're not seeing the same one if you're a regular. And we do have a lot of regulars up for that. And then in the summertime, of course, we have all kinds of shows still going on. The Wild Bunch is always out there on the weekends. Hopefully the city will bring us back for that. They were kind enough to bring us back last year, and this will be our 6th season. And the Wild Bunch are a bunch of cowboys that go out there, and we do some comedy, and we do some other things out there on the street for you, and our gunfights and stuff. So if you were a kid back then and you got to see some of those, come and enjoy some of those in the summertime that we do. Like I said, there's a lot of comedy. Bring the kids in. We actually rob one of the stores. By the time we get out to the street, though, it's just a bunch of candy we got instead of money. So, we do a lot of that kind of stuff. And again, we'll be putting some things together. We have the Straley House for the Tea also. That's very nice if you want to do something like that. But I want to thank the Historical Society for sure, and Dave's time to be with us to help us do this. And I want to thank the city of Central and Mr. Patrick Duffy, who, like I say, you never get to see because he's always behind the camera. But thanks, Patrick, for everything. And Patrick's email will be on the screen for you. And please, if you want us to go into a building, if you want to see something else that we might have missed in here, let us know. Drop us an email, or if you just don't like the show, don't drop us one. But anyway, if you like the show, let us know. We're trying to change things up here. We're trying to give you a little bit more than just the politics on TV. So come on and join us every week, and we'll take you someplace new. We haven't quite decided yet, but we got several places we can go for next week. I know one of the places I want to eventually get into is the Coeur d'Alene Mine. I think you'd love to see something like that on the inside if you've never seen it. But we've also got the Lee Mansion, which I've talked to Nikki Lee about touring that place, and that was actually built by Lee, a slave at that time. He was a slave, and he took that from General E. Lee's name, his name, Lee. but built the most beautiful mansion here in Central City up off the First High Street. And we want to take you through that and tour you through that. And that is as original as you can get up there. It's a beautiful, beautiful home, and Nikki's been gracious enough to walk us through that. It is a bed and breakfast also up here, so we'll show you that. There's so many things we want to show you up here, and we'll bring it all live to you right here on channel 20, and hopefully this will start. It'll get out there, right, Patrick, on 20 eventually. I know a lot of you guys are asking me how come I don't see it on 20. Well, it'll be there, trust me. If you want to see it right now, you can go on YouTube and catch some of our shows. We have probably 4 or 5 shows on YouTube right now. We started with the Thomas House, and we had the Teller House, we had the Opera House, we had St. James. We're doing this right now, so you can check those out. I think Patrick has them all on there. But anyway, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll be back next week from a new location. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.